What's going on, YouTube? I am now 10 months on hormones, and this is my update. There's nothing really new. I have more hair. My voice may have dropped. I don't know. The only thing that's really worth talking about is the fact that my cramps are terrible. I've had cramps ever since my cycle has stopped. Each month it seems to be around the time that I would be having my cycle. They're horrible though. The cramps are just unbearable, way worse than anything I've ever dealt with, you know, pre-hormones. So I don't know what that means. I definitely intend on having a hysterectomy as soon as possible, but that's not very fun to deal with. Because I don't have anything new to share, I thought that I would do something special and just kind of have a dialogue with some friends. The subject matter of sexuality and how that has evolved. I noticed that the subject comes up a lot when people are starting their own transition. I've heard a lot of trans guys before they start hormones talk about the fear of becoming gay or like their sexuality changing. And I have a lot to say about that, and so do my friends, so we thought that we would talk to you about it. So here we go. Okay, so these are my friends. This is Adrian. You guys might know Adrian. He runs Art of Transliness, pretty popular blog on Tumblr, and you guys have like a URL now, right?
Yeah, it still links up to the blog. It's
okay.
Super fancy. We have a .com.
Oh god.
Big leagues.
This is his partner B. This is a pretty good friend. We go way back, way back. And this is Madi, another friend of mine. We also go way back. So we thought we would discuss this topic with you all. So let's see. When I first started coming to terms with my trans identity, I had heard a lot of other trans guys that I was friends with talk about how you know, either they were afraid that their sexuality was going to change from how they were identifying currently, or they had experienced a change in their sexuality. And to me, that was interpreted to hormones makes you gay, and that's actually like pretty relevant. I think I've heard that quite a few times. I don't know. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
And I think for me, that was definitely a fear before I became educated and before I became self-aware. I was scared, oh my god, I'm gonna like men, I don't want to be gay, I don't want to be seen as gay, and really I think that what it boils down to is I had a lot of internalized homophobia, and just really working on my self-perception and coming to terms with my identity and learning what transition meant for me personally, what was right for me, was going on hormones, and in the process, I was like, fuck you, I'm here. You can't keep me out, I can't be tamed. Coming to terms with my identity really meant, it was really a time for me to learn more about myself, and in that process, my sexuality didn't necessarily change, but it opened up a lot, and it wasn't so much that I was never, like I never noticed men before, that I was never attracted to men, that I was only attracted to females who identified and expressed themselves as females. It was more of the fact that I had a lot of internalized homophobia, and I was scared of what that would mean for me and how I would be perceived, how my masculinity would be perceived to society if I did identify as gay. When I became more in touch with what was true and honest for myself. Showstopper. It's been hard for me to come to terms with that, and I think a lot of other guys have a hard time articulating that fear and you know, just being honest with themselves. So I just kind of want to ask my friends their opinions.
So since I was like 12 or 13, identified as a lesbian, and I got out of this like 2.5-year long relationship with this girl, and realized that I was attracted to this guy, this trans guy, And it took me a while to like come to terms with what that meant for me, and like, am I still a lesbian? Do I still fit in to this community that I've built around myself? And like, what do I tell my family and my lesbian friends? Are they going to think like, oh, you're not a part of our group anymore? But really it's just about, like, I have always liked people on the more masculine end of the spectrum, and like whether that's a female or a trans guy or even a cis guy, then I don't know, I guess I'm going to like them
Right.
no matter what.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people feel like they are losing their label. They're scared to lose their label, but I think what it really is they're scared to lose the community that they've built based around the label.
We always say we don't want to fit into these little boxes.
Right.
Once you get into this box, it's pretty comfortable.
Right.
It really is. And it's hard to feel like you might be exiled from it.
Yeah.
Like, I was the same way. I identified as a lesbian for a really long time. And even, like, Ray coming out really freaked me out. And I still don't really understand. I think it was more of like a personal thing. But the transition from female to male was something that I was not sure how that would be perceived. And even now, I'm struggling with things like being attracted to a cis guy. That my sister's gay, and I was terrified to even tell her that I thought I might have feelings for this guy, because I didn't know. I felt like that would be rejected immediately, especially from somebody that I've identified as a lesbian for a really long time. I've been fairly involved in the LGBT community. I'm really strong in my queer beliefs, and then all of a sudden here I am, like, liking a straight biological male. Like, I feel like a traitor almost. Like, it's weird.
I think I've heard that about a lot of couples who go through transition together, where maybe beforehand they had both identified as being in a lesbian relationship and a part of transitions, and it's not necessarily what their relationship means together. Like, that dynamic, from what I understand, doesn't change a whole lot, but it's society's perception. Right. And so they lose, like, their visible queerness, and that's, like, really bothersome to a lot of people. For myself, like, I never identified as lesbian. I mean, I obviously was, like, female body for quite some time and was perceived as lesbian, but it wasn't something I was really, gung-ho about. And so, for me, like, the complexities of sexuality are more, like, couched in masculinity and, like, it's inherent homophobia that comes along with, like, American style of masculinity. And so, for me, trying to define, like, what kind of man I was going to be, like, in the beginning stages of my transition really was, like, steeped in homophobia. And a lot of the support groups that I went to and a lot of the dialogue that I was hearing was people were so afraid to become a gay man. And it wasn't until a friend called out a group that I was in about how, like, messed up that was that I realized that has something that you have little to no control over, and something that should be embraced if you experience it, because really it's just showing, like, the diversity and complexity of yourself as a person. And, that's part of transitioning, is just, like, growing,
Absolutely. Evolving as a person.
And on top of that, it's not like you would have any kind of feelings about that if one of your friends had come out to you as gay. It wouldn't be a shameful thing or something that you were afraid of.
Right. Yeah. And I think, identities and labels specifically labels are very oppressive. And very much, like, trying to fit people into boxes, and, like, though people may constantly be like, I don't fit into a box, and I don't want to be identified as such, it is comfortable.
Right.
Absolutely.
And people are going to put you in a box whether you want to be there or not.
Absolutely. And I think what it needs to boil down to is your happiness. And so, like, if you do start hormones and you do start to feel attractions towards men, maybe not looking at that as a negative thing, because that is homophobia in its truest form. Like, why, and maybe it needs to resort to, like, self-reflection and why is that so scary for you, you know, because maybe there is something internalized that you haven't dealt with that you need to, and to kind of get hung up on that instead of hung up on, I'm going to be honest and true with myself, and down the line that is going to make me happy, and I'm going to be the happiest form that I can be. You know, whatever label that puts on you, it doesn't matter because you're happy in the end. You know, that originally, when I was 15, coming out as a lesbian, that's what was difficult about it, was I didn't want my life to be shaken up so much. And like, from this point, I can see like it's really not that big of a deal. It was not that big of a deal. Society makes it a huge deal maybe, and so that's why I made it a huge deal. But at the time, I just didn't want to deal with being different. I just wanted, you know, to fit into a societal norm, which I mean, from this point, I definitely don't want that. I learned so much about myself from stepping out of my comfort zone.
I think what some people are afraid of when they realize that their sexuality is more complex than it was before was a lot of what people say when they come out as like a comforting statement is, don't worry, I'm going to stay the same. I'm going to be the same person. Don't worry, I'm just going to be happier and truer. And then when you kind of drop that bomb on people, which it really shouldn't be that big of a deal, but when you do that, people start to question the validity of the statement. Are you the same? And to that end, you know, with some, you know, self-reflection, you can figure out, well, yes, I'm still the same, you know, I might be a more complex person now, it's fine, you know, but I think that's why a lot of people might be afraid to kind of claim that or even explore it, is because they're afraid of invalidating the statement that they've told everyone in their lives to make everyone else comfortable that they're not going to change, and then they do, you know. But it's always for the better.
Yeah.
But it's hard for people to see it that way because, you know, society is drenched in homophobia.
Yeah, and I've definitely said that before. You know, the person that I am now, 10 months on hormones, is not the same person that I was 10 months ago, you know, let alone like 5 years ago. You know, but at the same time, nothing has been a negative.
And there's nowhere that says that, say you hadn't started hormones or you hadn't changed the way that you identify with your sexuality, like, people evolve. In a 10-month span, anybody could change so many things. That's nothing that really has to do with your gender or your sexuality. Like, people change.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and if you're staying the same person, then you're really not living life. You're really being boring.
You suck.
Yeah.
So everyone should be gay.
That's what we're trying to say right now, is that everybody
We're
needs
trying
to
to
be gay.
recruit you.
Yes. Oh my god. I think so. Bottom line is never be afraid to really truly know yourself, and whether that's in relation to your sexuality or your identity or the things that you like or the way you live your life or your career, whatever it is, like, you should always be trying to better yourself, and you should never be afraid of how your life may evolve. And if you are afraid, that might be something that you need to evaluate in your heart, you know, because that might be some phobia that you're harboring inside of yourself, and that's not good. That will only hinder you in your life.
I think it's okay to be afraid. Good things happen when you're afraid.
For sure. It definitely opens up the door for self-exploration.
Silas.
Alright, well, that's it from us. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you to all my friends for being in the video. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that's so cute. Say bye, Silas. Oh, that's a good dog.